A mathematician in over 2000 years ago was able to measure the circumference of the earth with just a stick and the shadow with the sun rays. You can imagine that. Now let's get in deep on how he did this. Eratosthenes was a Greek mathematician, philosopher, and an astronomer who lived in the 240 BC. Now he knew for a fact that in a city known as Syene, modern-day Aswan in Egypt, that at midday the sun was directly overhead, and that meant that there was no shadow that was cast. But at the same time, in Alexandria, he noticed that a post casted a perfect shadow. Now with this knowledge, he used a stick only and its shadow and look at its angle to know the circumference of the earth. You can imagine. Now as far as we are right now, you can see for yourself that the earth is not flat, because two cities that in which a shadow is being cast, but one object in a certain city, a shadow is being formed and the other is not being formed, literally tells you that the earth is a curve, and we can get an evidence that the earth was round from just that. Now let's understand how this philosopher was able to measure the earth's circumference using mathematics, like literally. So while at Alexandria, he took a stick and placed it on the ground, and it casted a shadow to the ground. Now the angle between the shadow and the stick was 7.2 degrees. And knowing perfectly well that the earth is a sphere, he assumed that it was a perfect sphere and used 360 degrees as a reference. Now comparing 7.2 to 360 degrees, it gave him a ratio of a fifth. Now knowing that, he already knew from his mind the distance between Syene and Alexandria. Now using the two cities, he compared a fifth to their distance to get the actual length of the circumference of the earth, which was an approximate. Of course, there was an error since the earth is not a perfect sphere but a geoid. But let's get into context and see how the errors and how close he was. So in simple terms, we take 7.2 degrees and divide it by 360, and we have a ratio of 1:50. Now you take this 50 and he multiplied it with the distance from Syene to Alexandria, and the distance was 39,375 kilometers, while the actual distance of the earth was 40,075 kilometers. Now that's a 2% and a less than 2% error. You can see how accurate he was, but the main sources of error was of course the earth isn't a perfect sphere, it's a geoid, but he did great while doing this. If you like more of this science and technology content, make sure to subscribe and comment your thoughts on Eratosthenes below.